If you're over 60 and take magnesium, two numbers can make the label look contradictory: 420 milligrams and 350 milligrams. One is the daily value. The other is the adult upper limit for magnesium from supplements and medications.
That's a big difference.
But they measure different things. Treating the first number like a pill target is the mistake that can get you into trouble, and once you see why, the rest of the label starts making much more sense. For adults, age 51 and older, the recommended dietary allowance is 420 milligrams a day for men and 320 for women. The FDA's daily value on food and supplement labels uses that same 420 milligram reference. That daily value helps you compare magnesium intake across the whole diet. The 350 milligram upper limit is a different reference. It applies to magnesium from dietary supplements and medications in healthy adults. Magnesium that occurs naturally in food isn't counted toward it. Crossing that number doesn't mean toxicity suddenly begins, and clinician-directed use can be different. So imagine someone sees the daily value and thinks, "I need a supplement that gives me that entire amount every day." That sounds logical until you remember that breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, fortified foods, and some medications may already be contributing magnesium. A bowl of oatmeal, a handful of nuts, beans with lunch, spinach at dinner. Those are part of the total intake that the recommended amount is talking about. Now turn the bottle around and look at the supplement facts panel. The magnesium number there refers to elemental magnesium. It tells you how much actual magnesium the serving provides, rather than the total weight of the larger compound attached to it. So if the front says magnesium citrate, magnesium oxide, or another form, use the elemental amount on the back label when you compare products. The percentage beside magnesium can also be misleading if you read it as a dosing instruction. The daily value is a reference point for the total diet. It doesn't know your sex, what you ate today, why you're taking magnesium, which medications you use, or whether a clinician has given you a specific plan. That leaves you with a better question. Instead of asking, "How much magnesium should my pill contain?" ask, "How much am I already getting, and what am I trying to correct?" That distinction becomes even more important after 60, because older adults are more likely to have low magnesium intake, but age also brings changes in absorption, kidney handling, chronic disease, and medication use. So age by itself doesn't tell you to take a bigger dose. Getting older makes magnesium worth paying attention to for several reasons supplement ads rarely explain. The National Institutes of Health lists older adults as one of the groups more likely to have magnesium inadequacy. On average, older adults consume less magnesium than younger adults. Absorption from the gut also tends to decrease with age, while magnesium losses through the kidneys can increase. Add chronic disease and long-term medication use, and it becomes easier for magnesium status to drift in the wrong direction. That sounds like an argument for taking more magnesium. But there is an important distinction. Low intake alone doesn't diagnose magnesium deficiency. You can eat less than the recommended amount without developing the severe signs of deficiency. In fact, symptomatic deficiency caused only by low dietary intake is uncommon in otherwise healthy people because the kidneys can conserve magnesium when the body is running low. So if a 70-year-old looks at their diet and realizes they're not reaching the recommended intake, that is useful information. It isn't proof that every cramp, restless night, or feeling of fatigue is being caused by magnesium. Age also changes the medication side of the equation. The same person with a low intake is more likely to be taking several prescription drugs. A water pill used for blood pressure can change how much magnesium is lost in urine. Long-term use of certain proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux has been linked to low magnesium levels. On the other hand, if kidney function is significantly impaired, the body can have more difficulty getting rid of excess magnesium. So there is no single direction in which age pushes the answer. For one person, the problem may be that very little magnesium is coming from food. For another, a medication may be increasing magnesium loss. And for someone with reduced kidney function, adding large amounts from a supplement may create a different problem entirely. This is why I wouldn't start with the question, "How old am I, and how many milligrams should I take?" A better starting point is much more practical. What does your diet look like? Why are you considering magnesium? Which medications do you take regularly? And has anyone ever told you that your kidney function is reduced? Once those questions are on the table, the number on the bottle starts to mean something. But there is still one part of the label we haven't dealt with. Two bottles can provide the same amount of elemental magnesium and still behave differently in your digestive system. The form adds another layer of confusion, because the front of the bottle may say oxide, citrate, chloride, or glycinate, and each one is usually marketed as though it has a completely different job. There is a real difference between forms. But the difference is more practical than some supplement marketing makes it sound. Magnesium has to dissolve before your intestine can absorb it. NIH notes that forms that dissolve well in liquid tend to be absorbed more completely than less soluble forms. That is one reason magnesium citrate generally performs better than magnesium oxide in absorption studies. In a crossover study of 14 healthy men, magnesium citrate produced greater urinary magnesium excretion than magnesium oxide and higher plasma magnesium at several measurement points. So form can matter. The study answers a narrow question. It doesn't show that everyone needs citrate, or that one form fixes insomnia while another fixes muscle cramps. It also doesn't support one universal absorption percentage that you can apply to everyone. Human magnesium absorption is affected by the dose, the formulation, the person's magnesium status, and even the way researchers choose to measure absorption. That is why I'd be careful with exact absorption percentages printed in articles, advertisements, or social media posts. A single percentage can make the science look much more settled than it really is. There is another practical difference between forms, and you may notice this one without a laboratory test. Unabsorbed magnesium stays in the intestine, where it can pull in water. At higher supplemental doses, that can lead to diarrhea, nausea, or abdominal cramping. The NIH specifically notes gastrointestinal effects with several magnesium salts, including magnesium oxide. So if someone changes from one product to another and suddenly tolerates it better, that is useful. But better tolerance doesn't automatically mean they need a larger amount. The elemental magnesium line still matters. If two products each list 200 milligrams of elemental magnesium, that is the amount you use when comparing how much supplemental magnesium each serving provides, even if the compounds named on the front are different. Form helps answer one question: how well might this product dissolve, absorb, and agree with your digestive system? Form still can't answer the question that matters more after 60. Is there anything in your health history or medication list that changes whether taking magnesium is a good idea in the first place? Because for some older adults, that matters more than choosing between citrate, oxide, or glycinate. Before I'd worry about which magnesium form has the best reputation online, I'd check the medications you take regularly. Magnesium can interact with some common prescription drugs. Sometimes the issue is timing. Taking magnesium too close to another medicine can reduce how much of that drug your body absorbs. Take oral bisphosphonates, for example. Drugs such as alendronate are commonly prescribed for osteoporosis. Magnesium can reduce their absorption, so NIH recommends separating magnesium-containing products and oral bisphosphonates by at least 2 hours. Certain antibiotics are another example. Magnesium can bind with tetracycline antibiotics such as doxycycline and quinolone antibiotics such as ciprofloxacin or levofloxacin. That can reduce the amount of antibiotic your body absorbs. The timing guidance is more specific here. These antibiotics should generally be taken at least 2 hours before or 4 to 6 hours after a magnesium-containing supplement. Then there are medications that affect magnesium in the opposite direction. Some loop and thiazide diuretics can increase magnesium loss in urine. Potassium-sparing diuretics can reduce magnesium excretion instead. So saying "I'm on a water pill" isn't enough information. The particular medication matters. Long-term proton pump inhibitor use is worth knowing about too. These are medications commonly used for acid reflux. Prescription PPIs have been associated with low magnesium in some people when taken for prolonged periods, typically more than a year. Kidney function is another check. Your kidneys are one of the main systems controlling how much magnesium stays in your body. When magnesium status is low, healthy kidneys can reduce the amount lost in urine. But when kidney function is significantly impaired, removing excess magnesium becomes harder. That is why reduced kidney function changes the safety conversation. The NIH specifically notes that the risk of magnesium toxicity increases with impaired kidney function or kidney failure. So if you have kidney disease or you take several prescription medications, this isn't a situation where I'd use an online dosage chart and start experimenting on my own. Bring the bottle and your medication list to your pharmacist or clinician and let them check the combination. If you find these label-first health breakdowns useful, subscribe so you can catch the next one. Even after you sort out the amount, the form, medications, and kidney function, one question still matters. What are you expecting magnesium to actually do? Because sleep, blood pressure, muscle cramps, and magnesium deficiency often get bundled together online, even though the evidence behind them varies quite a bit. This is where magnesium advice can get ahead of the evidence. Magnesium is involved in normal nerve function, muscle contraction, heart rhythm, and blood pressure regulation. And when someone has a real magnesium deficiency, symptoms can include weakness, numbness, muscle contractions, cramps, and abnormal heart rhythms. But that doesn't mean every person with one of those symptoms will improve by taking more magnesium. Take nighttime leg cramps. Magnesium is one of the first supplements people reach for because cramps can occur with magnesium deficiency. But a Cochrane review concluded that magnesium supplementation is unlikely to provide a clinically meaningful preventive benefit for older adults with skeletal muscle cramps. That distinction matters. A symptom can occur during a deficiency without that deficiency being the usual cause of the symptom. Sleep is more complicated. A systematic review looking specifically at older adults with insomnia found only 3 randomized controlled trials with a total of 151 participants. In the pooled results, people taking magnesium fell asleep about 17 minutes faster than those taking placebo. That sounds encouraging. But the researchers also judged the overall evidence to be low or very low quality, and the improvement in total sleep time was not statistically significant. So magnesium may help some older adults with sleep, especially when inadequate magnesium is part of the picture, but the evidence doesn't support treating every case of insomnia as a magnesium problem. Blood pressure gives us another useful example. Magnesium clearly participates in blood pressure regulation. Clinical trials also suggest that supplementation can lower blood pressure a little. The NIH describes that effect as marginal, and the FDA has concluded that the evidence connecting adequate magnesium intake with a reduced risk of hypertension remains inconsistent and inconclusive. That makes magnesium very different from a prescribed blood pressure treatment. A nutrient can play an important biological role without being a proven treatment for every symptom linked to it. Magnesium matters enormously to the body, and correcting a true deficiency matters too. But once magnesium gets marketed as an answer for poor sleep, cramps, blood pressure, and other symptoms involving nerves or muscles, several different questions get collapsed into one. Do you actually have inadequate magnesium? Is magnesium effective for the particular problem you're trying to solve? And if supplementation makes sense, what amount fits your diet, medications, and health history? If supplementation still makes sense after those questions, choosing a dose from one number on a bottle is too crude. A safer decision starts with the reason you're considering magnesium. So if you're standing in front of a shelf full of magnesium bottles, start with the reason you're considering magnesium. If the goal is simply to improve a diet that is low in magnesium, look at the diet first. Green leafy vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds, and whole grains are all meaningful sources. Magnesium can also show up in fortified foods, antacids, and laxatives, so the supplement bottle may not be your only source. Then check the supplement facts panel. Ignore the large number printed on the front for a moment and check the serving size. One serving may be 1 capsule, 2 capsules, or several tablets. Then find the amount listed beside magnesium. That is the elemental magnesium provided by that serving. Now compare that amount with the rest of the picture, rather than treating it as your entire daily requirement. If you're taking magnesium because of a symptom, slow the decision down. A recurring leg cramp doesn't prove magnesium deficiency. Neither does poor sleep, fatigue, weakness, or a racing heartbeat. Those symptoms can have many causes, and continuing to increase a supplement because the first dose didn't fix them can delay the more useful question, which is why the symptom is happening. Next, check the medications. If you use an osteoporosis medicine such as an oral bisphosphonate, certain antibiotics, a diuretic, or a proton pump inhibitor, magnesium may interact with the drug, or the drug may affect your magnesium status. A pharmacist can review that combination if you bring the exact medication list and the supplement bottle. Then consider kidney function. If you've been told that you have chronic kidney disease or reduced kidney function, don't assume the usual over-the-counter magnesium advice applies to you. Healthy kidneys remove excess magnesium. When kidney function is impaired, that protection can be reduced. Only after those questions would I spend much time comparing the form. Different magnesium forms can vary in solubility and digestive tolerance. If one product repeatedly causes diarrhea or abdominal cramping, taking more of it isn't a sensible way to compensate for poor tolerance. If you're taking magnesium for a specific health problem and it isn't helping, don't automatically respond by pushing the dose higher. Go back to the reason you started. Maybe your diet needs attention. Maybe a medication is affecting magnesium. Maybe the symptom has nothing to do with magnesium at all. Or maybe there is a medical reason for using a dose that should be supervised, rather than copied from the side of another person's bottle. Once you work through the decision in that order, the two numbers from the opening stop looking contradictory. The recommended intake covers the full day, while the upper limit covers magnesium from supplements and medications. Food magnesium is treated differently, which is why the upper limit can be lower than the recommended daily intake. Using a total daily requirement as your pill target is where the label gets misread. The label can't see what you ate today, which medications you take, or whether reduced kidney function changes the safety picture. It also can't tell you whether the symptom you're trying to fix is actually caused by low magnesium. Magnesium supplements can still be useful when they fill a real gap. Some clinician-directed uses can involve amounts above the usual supplemental upper limit, but those doses belong under the direction and supervision of a healthcare professional. So when you look at a magnesium bottle, don't chase the largest number. Use the label to answer a narrower question. How much supplemental magnesium does this serving add to everything else you're already getting? Once you separate total intake from supplemental intake, the label becomes much easier to use safely.